gears here, guys, and jump over to a little Josh Simmons talk, a little offensive line talk. And the reason I bring this up, look, I'm not like crazy about Josh Simmons. I'll tell you where he's at on our board, obviously. As we look at the board here, Josh Simmons is currently where you at, sir? Because it has shifted a little bit since I wrote this article. Where are you at, Josh Simmons? I know you're a tackle, sir. Oh, he's in the 24 spot, so he's right there in the wheelhouse, right? Captain at Ohio State, athletic threshold. Packers met with him earlier in the process, I think at the combine, if I remember correctly, and they had him in for a top 30 visit. So, I mean, he's that's pretty. The only thing he's missing is Senior Bowl, or he'd be in the gold bar, right? And again, just because they wasn't at Senior Bowl, don't mean they won't draft him, but they do like their Senior Bowl guys. So, of all the
red box next to him, though, right?
What's that?
We've got the red box next to him, though, correct?
Correct, but it sounds like he's good to go.
He's good? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not going to remove the red box until we get to the draft.
I pay like extra close attention to ACL with dudes like that because that's a big beast of a man right there. That's a lot of weight on them knees.
Definitely. Jacob said that a time or two at the office. Anyway, we go. So the one offensive lineman that's emerged as a Packer favorite. All right. So I said with the draft only 10 days away, obviously it's a few days ago, and several more top 30 visits to take place. The Packers have had only one in-house for a top 30 visit. Let's see what Dane Brugler had to say about Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. So he had him listed at 6'5", 317. Okay, 4-year junior. 2-year starter at Ohio State. Simmons lined up at left tackle in former offensive coordinator Chip Kelly's diverse run game, gap/zone, pin and pulls, counters. That sound familiar, boys? After 2 seasons at San Diego State, he transferred to Columbus and blossomed while moving from right tackle to left tackle the past 2 seasons. So we got swing tackle possibilities there. Simmons was on pace for the first 5 games of the season to be an All-American and looked like a strong contender for offensive tackle 1 in the draft class. But he suffered a non-contact knee injury in mid-October, which sidelined him for the rest of the season. Simmons explodes out of his stance in pass protection, and plays with knee bend, balance, and calmness to govern his movements. Shoots his hands and stays square to pass rushers. He isn't an overpowering mauler in the run game, but Kelly's offense highlighted Simmons' range when executing pulls, reaches, traps, etc. Overall, Simmons is a nimble, coordinated pass protector with tremendous athletic poise and the body control of a long-term starting left tackle in the NFL. His pro projection hinges on his medical feedback, so he has a first to second round grade on him. Here are the strengths: light-footed and lateral slides with good size and length. Took big step between 2023 and 24 season with efficiency, getting out of his stance. Maintains wide base with terrific body fluidity. Shows terrific pacing to stay centered both on the move and once engaged. Patient yet direct with hands and pass pro to land accurate punches and stay connected. Able to rework or chop hands to regain leverage. Terrific when working in tandem to stymie stunts in games. Redirects well as a run blocker to wall off lanes. Works in different snatch and slingshot techniques. Range jumps out on run pulls. Often reaches landmarks 1 step before the defender. That's what you love to hear, especially with duo. Penalized just once in 6 starts in 2024. It was a false start versus Oregon. I wonder if that was at Eugene. It might have been at Eugene. Experienced at both left tackle and right tackle. And as weaknesses are, you see this list of strengths, and there's a far fewer lists of weaknesses. Needs to continue developing anchor to settle down after giving ground to bull rushes. Occasionally caught oversetting. Initial hand work needs to be better in the run game. Not a true people mover once he latches. Non-contact patella injury in the left knee. October of 2024, which required season-ending surgery. And, of course, at the time we showed where he was at on the board. We've showed you an updated version of that now. What do you guys think about Josh Simmons here? On the surface, would you be willing to take him at 23, or do you think this was Goody just trying to get a little bit better understanding of the patella there, Tim?
I don't even know how to answer that question. I just don't, because, and when you hear like non-contact, it's kind of like what I was referring to. So he was probably, coming out of a set or something, stepped, and that was the end of that knee. And, he had the preventative measure type knee braces on even before the injury. So it is a little bit of a concern. I don't think it's enough of a concern to like take this guy off your board. I would not be thrilled with him at 23. I would also not be extremely disappointed. And I think if we're going to go O-line, we probably do want to go with a tackle first, if possible, best available, given that I feel like we got a little better on the inside, especially with guys moving around. And you know the acquisition of Banks from the Niners. So I feel like interior O-line's looking good. I think we'll have good competition with Sean Ryan and probably Jordan Morgan for that right guard spot, and having some tackle depth, especially kind of not knowing, are we going to give Rasheed Walker the bag? Is he going to be is he going to be that guy long term? Having more big body tackles, especially a guy who's a swing tackle, it's kind of rare to play left and right tackle.
Yeah.
So that's a good attribute. And, like you said, man, the strengths far outweigh the weaknesses. So there's a lot to like here. And certainly a guy that's like not a 100% project player, but probably a player that is going to take maybe a year or two to really develop, but I don't know if that answers the question. I feel okay about him at 23. I don't know how.
Just not crazy about it, right?
Yeah, just not crazy about it.
I got you. What about you, Jake? And or shout out to King Tron, gifted 5 Packer Total Access memberships. Appreciate you, Tron. You're the man, buddy. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah. I'm a little bit scared of Mr. Josh Simmons, whatever you want to say. More so because when you look back at his last 3 years, I mean, it wasn't that great. You look at 2022, he played 13 games. He had a 47.1 grade. He allowed 4 sacks, 3 hits, 17 hurries. 2023, he played 13 games. He was a 67.5. That's all right, but not exactly first round material. 2024, his best graded year, he only played 6 games, obviously because of the injury, and he had a 74.4 grade. I think the biggest thing I like would be, is like Tim said, the versatility where he plays left tackle and right tackle, significant snaps against significant opponents, right? But just for the 23rd pick in a draft class of certain talents at other positions, that one would have me scratching my head a little bit. Just kind of not quite understanding the value at that pick.
Mm-hmm. And again, Dane Brugler said if he hadn't got hurt, he probably would have been the top tackle in this draft. I think Mimbu is probably overtaking him now, is what it sounds like, which we've been high on him most of the time. Where is I've heard it Mimbu and Mimbo. I think I'm going to call him Mimbu because that's what Daniel Jeremiah is saying. He's usually got a pretty good grab of it. We've got him in the 8th spot. So Will Campbell, we've actually got higher than that. Some people say because of the arm length, he's probably going to be a guard. You guys know how that goes. We could argue till the cows come home about that. So, yeah, Josh Simmons is number 3 on our board, but that means he would have been, if he hadn't got hurt, if that did hold true, then according to our board, he probably would have been up around the 8th spot, maybe even the 7th spot on our board in that case. Now, with that being said, with Josh Simmons, the reason we've got him at the 24th spot, like Jacob said, in 22, he was 550 or 562nd in his position. In 23, he jumped all the way to 178. In 24, he jumps all the way to 92. So you've seen a steady increase there in PFF grades in terms of his positional ranking. At the end of the college football season, even after the injury, the PFF big board had him in the 11th spot. The consensus big board had him at 19. Daniel Jeremiah on his first release had him at 30. Kyle Krabs had him in the 8th spot, and Dane Brugler had him at 17. So that's how we got to this point. I haven't heard Greg Cosell say anything on him, so we don't have a bonus there. So that's why he's sitting in the 24th spot. So I think that was more about, let's get him in here and see if that injury, is he tracking to be okay by the time the season starts, would be my guess, and just get a little bit better understanding of that in case he is sitting there and he's the best on their board. With them taking a look at him, I can't imagine they would waste a top 30 visit to get him in to look at the injury to confirm they would take him at 54 because he's probably going to be long gone. You know what I mean? Right. So that's where I'm kind of like, maybe Goody, that would suggest Goody's got a much higher grade on him than we do. Maybe that does put him up there with Mimbo. So, and we know how Goody loves those projection picks, right? Not so much, how did he play in college? It's how are these guys going to project to the NFL? So
I definitely think if Goody goes tackle, first round pick for the 2nd year in a row again, I think it's a really good sign that Jordan Morgan's moving to guard, or at least is going to compete for that right guard spot.
Yeah. Definitely. Daryl in the chat says, I'm iffy about Josh Simmons. I think we all are, Daryl, to be honest with you, man. That's what it sounds like going across the board here. Sure. So, all right. So there you go. Anything else you guys want to cover on Josh Simmons? Again, I wanted to hit on it because I'm not going to be surprised if they go O-line at 23. I know fans are going to lose their mind if it happens, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Goody goes offensive line there at 23.
I wouldn't be so mad about, like, I really like Gray Zabel, and I think I saw someone in the chat. Maybe it was Coach.
Yeah, Coach Lynn, I think, said that too.
I honestly, I love Gray Zabel just because they've talked about how he's one of those guys that can play center, can play guard, can play tackle anywhere. So you get a Swiss Army knife like that automatically gives you depth at 3 positions. Mm-hmm. That to me just makes sense if you're going to double back a guy in the front in the first round. That is, that to me is more intriguing. You guys know how cheap I am, right? So like the more bang for your buck. That to me, you get a guy that can play 3 positions that in a pinch could be. He was one of the. I think another one where they said, good guard, great. Good tackle, great guard, like awesome center kind of thing, where it's like just plug them in wherever.
Yeah, where have we heard that before, right?
Right. The vibe I get too is no one sees him as a tackle in the NFL. I haven't heard anyone say he's going to play tackle in the NFL. He played tackle in college, went to the Senior Bowl, dominated at everything, right? But they're seeing him as the best center in the draft, and he can play interior offensive line is what I'm hearing now. So with that being said, if they were to bring him for a top 30 visit, guys, he's a Senior Bowl participant. He dominated. Let's go with this before we talk about the gold zone here, okay? Look at how every box across the board is full, okay? And this is what I mean by that. PFF 2022, he was 155th at his position. 23, he jumps to 24th. In 24, he jumped all the way to 5th, all right, at his position. The PFF big board had him at 39. The consensus big board is the only thing that's bringing him down. Him and Kyle Krabs had him a little lower. They got him at 74. Senior Bowl, Daniel Jeremiah said he dominated, so he gets the Senior Bowl bonus, right? Daniel Jeremiah had him at 48 on his initial list. He's probably risen since then, but you guys know how we do that. We stay with the original list. Kyle Krabs had him at 89. Dane Brugler originally had him at 38. That's a lot easier to stomach at 23, Jacob, if you want to go, with that pick with him. RAS, 9+ as an interior offensive lineman. Greg Cosell, absolutely loved him. He's all the way across the board, right? And why haven't the Packers had a top 30 visit? There ain't nothing else to check out there. They got his measurables, right? Yeah. They seen him dominate at the Senior Bowl. I guarantee you that's one that Goody's like, we are not wasting a top 30 visit on this dude because we know he's a dog, right? Now, with that being said, watch Goody bring him in. Watch us get word that they brought him in last week and we didn't know about it, right? So, but again, if he was a top 30 visit, he would not only be in the gold zone there, he'd also have a spade. So that's the only thing lacking. So you got to kind of, again, when you see all those bars full, everything across the board full, that tells you that's a dog. I'll tell you another one right here, Mason Taylor. Look at him. He's got digits in everything across the board as well. Maybe not quite as high, just a 3-point bonus with Greg Cosell and an 8+ RAS, not quite a 9, but you get the drift there. Look at Jaden Higgins, man. Him and Trey Harris have slowly crept up this entire process, dude. Pretty cool. I agree. Jaden Higgins in the 49 spot now, and Trey Harris in the 50 spot. Unfortunately,
I could see Jaden Higgins be one of those. He was a top 30 visit, and we find out later.
Yeah.
Names, yep.
Wouldn't surprise me either. All right. That's it for the offensive line talk. I'm glad we got that in because, again, I think it's something we're kind of overlooking. I think Goody will take at least 2 offensive linemen in this draft. I really do. So, With that being said, Jacob, you ready to do this, man? You ready to do your mock draft, sir?
Yeesh.
All right.
Now, what are the parameters? Do I get the final say? Is that basically what this is?
You